So hello everyone, happy Monday. So I've realized the problem at this time of year, I sit in like a kind of gloomy cave. So I do own other lights, but I'm going to opt not to use them. So we've got lots on the agenda today, so let's get going. Cool, so on the announcement, well done, Jarvis, Scarbeck, awesome release management, lots of things going on last week, and a Sunday release as well, but yeah, hugely well done. I feel like we should clap. Cool, Jav.
Oh, sorry, I should have put not to read here, just that I'm taking an extended holiday this weekend, and I thought maybe others would as well if I put it here. So, but yeah, I'm taking off, starting friends and family. I'll be out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Don't overstretch it, Jar. The whole 3 days?
Yes, 3 days. I know. Sure.
Awesome. Cool. And then I just added here, I put it in Slack, but just in case you missed it. So we have a scheduled meeting tomorrow. Go ahead and add questions to the agenda doc ahead of that. If there aren't any, we can cancel. So we'll see how that goes. Cool. So, Jav.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight this because I didn't know this was released until I read the release post, is that there have been some improvements to milestones. I know a couple of the complaints have been that when you move issues from one milestone to the next milestone, you kind of lose a record of what was done. And it sounds like that's been addressed. I haven't actually tried it myself, but if I believe the release post, it looks like that is no longer the case. And also you have this cool little burn up chart, which is really nice for tracking unplanned work. I don't know if we would ever adopt milestones. I know we've talked about it before, but I just thought it was cool to highlight.
Yeah, thanks. I had a quick look. I think I'm still in the, like, I'm not like sure what problem they solve for us. But I mean, if anyone wants to put together a proposal of what they could solve, then very happy to read that. So yeah, go ahead and do that if you want to. Cool. Maren.
Hey, everyone. I wanted to chat a bit and give some reminders to the team that you probably remember, but it doesn't hurt to actually repeat, related to iteration and dogfooding, specifically for this team. So you've probably heard it like a million times so far from all sides that dogfooding is really important for us. And some of you know iteration very well, or think that you know iteration very well. But I want to frame it within the team and explain why and how this is important for the existence of this team. So we've not always done dogfooding first, and we've not always done just iterate to a solution, right? But a lot of our things in the team have been done that way. And when we do a large dogfooding effort, which specifically puts some new product features in and removes some of our own maintained code, we actually create a bit of a cover for us to actually go with the next set of things that are not necessarily directly in the product, but we can implement them, run them at the process we have, and then we stop, go back, and start porting that back into the product. And while that doesn't seem like a big deal, it is what allowed us to run for the past 2 years largely unobstructed. So creating features within GitLab that are not only for us, but for everyone else, and then changing our own processes. When I say our own, I mean in GitLab internal processes to actually match the new feature, actually moved us or moved focus away from us so that we can actually focus on the work within the team. So I also want to address the iteration part, which is something that I got confronted with last week. I think I was not really clear about that. any piece of code or any tool or anything custom that we wrote, that we move away from our own maintenance and move into the product, like I said, is really important. But at the same time, if we move a single click or a single button or a single line from our templates into the product as a feature, that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to actually write a whole long project, month worth of projects to actually get the feature done perfectly. It is also okay for us to replace as small as possible parts and then over time build those features out. That gives us, first of all, again, dogfooding, it gives us the insight in how we can do it differently within the product, what kind of changes we can make in our processes to actually accommodate that. But also it exposes as well, you know, like the next steps that we can take. I know that for a lot of you, this is like very much known, but it doesn't really hurt to remind everyone, mostly because now that I'm not leading the team, like I'm not keeping a strict eye on everything there, and you all need to help Amy, and so that Amy can help you all as well with this direction. So try to think, and if you're not really certain, try to think about the next step we could take for any given feature. Like I am going to use the example of production changelog here, not calling out anyone, just using an example here. We have a whole project that is very useful for us, of course, but we have a new feature that is in GitLab, and we can start that discussion by thinking about, well, let's try to use the new feature, and then we have backend engineers inside of the team. Let's see how we can improve it. Let's see what kind of processes we can change to actually accommodate the usage of this new feature, so we can remove yet another thing from our queue. And ideally, I wouldn't need to participate there. Like I noticed it by accident, and I wouldn't need to participate there as well. Amy shouldn't participate there as well. Like you all are very senior here, and you know, or you should know, how much of an impact that actually has on the team as a whole. So I know this sounds a bit cryptic. I'm trying to keep it also a bit general, but I do want to open up for questions if you have any specific remarks.
When GitLab releases a new feature, if we are sometimes unknown about this, like the production changelog, I kind of knew about it, but like it's been a long time since I've heard about it. How would we go about introducing this as a proposal for our team when we have OKRs that take priority that are kind of unrelated?
Excellent question. So what Jarvis just did now, where he gave us a highlight like, hey, this is something that we can possibly consider using, that needs to come with the follow-up issue in our issue tracker, so we can track it. And then you use the process, the team process, on putting it in a certain queue. And then it's up to Amy to actually work on prioritizing this. So my direction to Amy is the dogfooding issues always, like, we have to strike the right balance between the OKRs and dogfooding. And as you can see, for example, we now kind of shifted this quarter more on like generating like a large feature. But if we were to do some of these things more frequently, it wouldn't have to be like a big bang type of event where we actually have to write like a large feature to actually satisfy this. So by following what is being released, right? Like I think all of us should be reading the monthly release, right? By then creating an issue, putting it in the board, you can think of it as, yeah, it might end up just in the back of the queue somewhere unknown, but we have a process for dogfooding, which is in the handbook. The right labels, with the right labels applied, we can track it more easily, and we can raise priority, because this is top of mind for a lot of leaders coming from the top, right? Like there is always this discussion of how are we balancing these things, and like if I can if I and Amy can explain what kind of balance we made and why we made it, it's easier than saying, well, we didn't even look into it, right? Like example here is one of the features that came out last month was Kubernetes cost management panel, right? Like I knew about it and I made a mistake. I didn't create an issue for it. So then it came as a directive from Sid, like, how are you using this feature? And I was like, I didn't even raise an issue for it. So we don't need Sid to be here and remind us, how are you using this feature? We can do that on our own. And if you say it's not the top priority at the moment, that is also okay. We can explain why it's not the top priority, as long as it doesn't come as a surprise to everyone. Does that answer your question, Skarbek? Cool, I see a nod there.
Nice. It's definitely interesting for me. This is something which I have not seen work super well in previous places. Like it's a really great thing that we have this kind of iterative approach, and also the dog fooding. So yeah, like definitely help me out on cases where you can see opportunities for us to do both of those, or to do more of both of those things. So.
And this is a two-way street, by the way, right? Like if you see me doing something silly, like not creating an issue, you can call me out. Like we know each other, all of us, long enough for you to be able to feel comfortable about calling me out and saying like, Marin, where is that issue? And then I can say, well, I didn't create it. I can delegate it to Amy then, right? But at least you'll call me out on that, and I can take the action or have someone else take the action for it. Cool.
Maybe it's worth also highlighting in there that like we do kind of have our kind of North Star is that the dream is everything we do exists inside the GitLab product. Maybe that's a long way away. Maybe we have a shortcut that we find. But that's the ultimate goal, is that everything we use to do our deployments and our releases, everybody else can also benefit from.
Yeah, and you'll see like the next quarter OKRs are going to be more and more in that direction, right? Like as we reached our targets with MTTP, we are going to now do this technical data, we'll address the technical data with release tools by moving it into one coordinated pipeline, right? But the next steps are going to be, how are we going to dismantle this whole thing, right? Like not immediate next step, obviously, but we always have to balance like what makes our MTTP and our metrics that we want to track achievable, but then at the same time, what makes, like we want to automate ourselves out of work. So we want to make sure that we move as many of these features back into the product, and over time, things are going to like get smaller in what we have to maintain, but other things are going to increase, right? The number of releases, the number of things that we need to deploy, and so on and so on. So there is always going to be a need for this team. It's just that the structure is going to change, and over time you might not be interested about that work, so you might be more interested in joining the stage group teams that are going to be working on the features that you built, right? So there is this like natural evolution that is going to come in the next 5 years into this team. But as you all know, it's not going to happen next year. Like it's really, really hard to do that, but it's definitely not going to happen next year if we don't start moving things slowly. So it's really important to know that now that we achieve certain goals of ours, especially like with Kubernetes being relatively close-ish to completion, we have to shift gears into what are we going to do to now remove the actual toil we have with our own maintenance and move it back into the product. And with the exception of Jarvis and Skarbek, all of you worked in the stage group teams, and you know how to build a feature, you know how to address that. And then Jarvis and Skarbek's role changes a bit as well. They're not going to be writing code, but there is still a lot of maintenance to be done related to how this actually works, how releases work, how deployments work, and so on. So yeah, that's a general letter that I just read. Cool. Amy, you're up next.
Cool, thank you. Thanks for sharing that as well. So yes, I just wanted to share out that on Wednesday, it's Friends and Family Day. That's a hard production changelog. So nothing on staging. And then Thursday and Friday for US holidays, we have a soft production changelog. So nothing beyond Canary. So just a kind of heads up, Skarbek, I'll coordinate with you on all of that stuff as release manager. But yeah, just wanted to make sure everybody was aware, like if you are working, say Thursday, don't be surprised if no release is going out. Myra, great point.
Yeah, so I wonder if we should move the security release deadline because it is currently scheduled for next Monday. So I guess we could move it for 1 week, or I don't know what you think.
Yeah, so Skarbek, should we catch up on that as well afterwards and pick our date? So yes, and thanks for raising that, Myra.
Yeah, just another question. So what would happen if we tried to deploy it to production? Like, is it completely restricted, or we can actually override that?
It's discouraged, strongly discouraged, because there won't be very many people around. So we should avoid doing it unless in a soft changelog, like if we absolutely have to, if we need to fix a problem, then we can do that we'll work with the SRE on call, engineer on call, but we won't be deploying just for the sake of deploying. It will only be in response to something, which will make Monday interesting. So yeah, good shout on the security release. Cool. Yorick.
Yeah, I put my epic on there for the changelog stuff. It's broken up into 2 epics. There's one for the actual changelog part, and then there's one for making it more easier to, or I would say making it possible to edit commit messages within GitLab. Partially or mostly because the feedback we got there is quite a bunch of people were worried that the process of editing them through Git rebase and basically doing it locally was too painful. But I'm curious to see if anybody has any ideas as to what kind of work I might have overlooked, or if you perhaps have strong opinions on the order of things. The general idea is that we sort of work on both in parallel, because one doesn't necessarily block the other. It is when we want to roll this out that's when we're going to need the commit message editing capabilities. So yeah, doesn't necessarily have to be now. So take a look at it and let me know if there's anything worth highlighting. And I think I am the last one. So that brings us to the discussion what we did last week.
Unless anyone has any questions on any of that stuff before we move on.
I guess I'll ask, did we engage with product on the features? Yorick.
Yeah, so what is it? Andrew Thomas is involved in it.
Okay.
And actually, now that I started planning these issues for the editing part, I found that there have been epics for this in the past. They hadn't really gone anywhere for various reasons. So I tried to loop in James Ramsey, because he was as part of that. And I found that actually 5 days ago, Gitly, or at least CJ, created an epic to add rebasing support to Gitly. So I also mentioned to him, like, hey, some of the work we're doing here will be overlapping. So let's see, how we can sort of collaborate on that, and at least make sure we're sort of heading the same direction.
Cool. Given that this is a feature, like, we need to stay on top with product here. Like, they need to give us general direction of what they want to see, so thanks for following up on that.
Awesome. Okay, so